Imagine arriving at work tomorrow morning and discovering that nothing is technically broken. The computers are working. The internet is running. The office lights are on. Yet somehow, the entire organization begins to slow down. Employee requests are delayed. IT incidents remain unresolved. Security alerts are not escalated. Approvals are stuck. Customer issues start piling up. Not because people stopped working, but because work itself stopped moving. Modern enterprises do not run on buildings. They run on workflows. Thousands of invisible processes connect people, systems, and teams every single day. And as organizations become larger and more digital, managing those workflows has become one of the biggest challenges in modern business. Somewhere inside that invisible infrastructure, one company has quietly become essential to how modern enterprises operate. That company is ServiceNow. Often described as the invisible operating system of modern business, ServiceNow helps organizations connect people, systems, and processes across the enterprise. But this video is not simply about understanding what ServiceNow does. It is about exploring a much bigger question. Could ServiceNow become one of the most indispensable companies in the age of enterprise AI? As companies grow, complexity grows with them. A small business may only need a few systems and a handful of processes to operate efficiently. But large enterprises are different. They may operate across dozens of countries, employ tens of thousands of people, and rely on hundreds of applications to run their daily operations. At first, adding more software seems like a logical solution. Each new tool is introduced to solve a specific problem. But over time, those solutions can create a new problem of their own. Work becomes fragmented. Information gets trapped inside separate systems. And simple tasks that should take minutes can suddenly take days. This creates friction throughout the organization. Not because employees are less productive, but because the systems supporting them are no longer working together efficiently. And that friction comes with a cost. A hidden cost that rarely appears on a financial statement. The cost of complexity. Because modern enterprises no longer have a software problem. They have a coordination problem. And before a company can move faster, it must first learn how to reduce that complexity. If complexity has become the hidden cost of growth, how do enterprises solve that problem? The answer is not adding more software. In fact, that is often what created the problem in the first place. Instead, enterprises need a way to coordinate how work moves across the organization. And that is exactly what ServiceNow was built to do. The easiest way to think about ServiceNow is as an operational layer that sits across the enterprise. It connects people, systems, and processes that would otherwise remain disconnected. Rather than replacing every application a company already uses, ServiceNow helps those systems work together. When information can move seamlessly from one team to another, work moves faster. Delays are reduced. Approvals become more efficient. And organizations gain better visibility into how work is being executed. That distinction is important. ServiceNow is not trying to become another destination where employees spend their time. Its purpose is to make work flow efficiently across the entire organization. And that is why many people describe ServiceNow as the invisible operating system of modern business. Because behind the scenes, thousands of tasks move through its platform every single day. Ultimately, the value of an enterprise is not determined by how many software applications it owns. It is determined by how efficiently work can move across the organization. And ServiceNow was built to make that possible. Once enterprises discovered a better way to coordinate work, something interesting began to happen. ServiceNow did not spread across organizations all at once. It usually started with a single workflow, often inside an IT department. At first, the goal was simple: reduce manual work and improve response times. But companies soon realized the same coordination challenges existed everywhere else. If one department could work more efficiently, why not apply the same approach across the entire organization? That simple idea created a powerful expansion opportunity. One workflow led to another. One team introduced the platform to the next. And gradually, ServiceNow moved beyond IT and became embedded in multiple business functions. Over time, organizations stopped viewing ServiceNow as a software tool. They started viewing it as part of their operational infrastructure. That distinction is important, because companies can replace individual applications. But replacing a platform that coordinates work across an entire enterprise is far more difficult. At this stage, ServiceNow is no longer helping a single team become more efficient. It is helping the entire organization operate more effectively. And that is often how software becomes mission-critical. Not by becoming the most visible application inside a company, but by quietly becoming one of the systems that organizations rely on every single day. Once ServiceNow becomes part of an organization's daily operations, something powerful begins to happen. The platform gradually becomes harder to replace. Not because customers are locked into long-term contracts, but because more and more work starts flowing through the system every day. Different teams begin relying on it. Internal processes become interconnected. And important tasks are coordinated through a single operational layer. At that point, replacing ServiceNow is no longer a simple software decision. It becomes an organizational decision. Companies would need to redesign processes, rebuild integrations, retrain employees, and carefully manage the risk of disrupting day-to-day operations. None of these obstacles may seem significant on their own. But together, they create a powerful form of dependency. And dependency often leads to durability. This is one of the reasons ServiceNow's customer relationships tend to be long-lasting. Organizations are not staying because they are forced to stay. They stay because leaving would create unnecessary disruption across the business. Over time, ServiceNow quietly transitions from being a helpful platform into becoming part of the company's operational foundation. And once software reaches that level of importance, customers rarely look for alternatives. Because the cost of disruption can be far greater than the cost of staying. By this point, ServiceNow is no longer being used by a single team. Its role begins to expand across the organization. As more departments adopt the platform, its importance naturally grows. Different teams can coordinate work more efficiently. Information becomes easier to access. And organizations gain a clearer view of how operations are being executed. This creates an important advantage. The value of ServiceNow does not grow linearly. It grows as its presence inside the organization expands. Because every additional process strengthens its role inside the enterprise. And every new use case increases the platform's importance. Over time, this creates a reinforcing cycle. Broader adoption leads to greater value. And greater value encourages even broader adoption. This is one reason ServiceNow has been able to expand alongside its customers. Because it is not simply selling software. It is becoming part of how organizations operate. By now, one thing should be clear. ServiceNow is not simply a software application. It has become part of how organizations operate every day. And that foundation may become even more valuable in the age of artificial intelligence. Because AI cannot create meaningful value on its own. It needs context. It needs access to information. And it needs to understand how work is actually performed inside an organization. Without that foundation, even the most advanced AI systems may struggle to create meaningful business outcomes. This is where ServiceNow may have an advantage. For years, enterprises have used the platform to organize processes, connect teams, and standardize how work moves across the business. That creates a structured environment where AI can be deployed more effectively. Instead of asking employees to search for information manually, AI can help identify what matters most. Instead of waiting for problems to escalate, AI can help prioritize actions earlier. And instead of adding more complexity, AI can help reduce it. In other words, ServiceNow is not applying AI to chaos. It is applying AI to an environment that has already been organized. And that may allow AI to create value more quickly inside large enterprises. Because when work is already connected, standardized, and visible across the organization, AI has a much stronger foundation to operate on. In many ways, artificial intelligence is not changing ServiceNow's role. It is increasing the value of the infrastructure that ServiceNow has already built. And that may allow ServiceNow to become even more important in the years ahead. If AI can understand how work gets done, the next question becomes, can AI eventually perform some of that work on its own? If AI can understand how work gets done, the next step may be allowing AI to perform some of that work on its own. This is where the concept of agentic AI begins to emerge. Unlike traditional AI systems that primarily generate responses, agentic AI is designed to take action. It can understand a task, make decisions within predefined rules, and execute a sequence of steps to complete that task. Inside large organizations, this could have significant implications. Many operational activities are repetitive, structured, and time-consuming. Employees spend countless hours routing requests, gathering information, escalating issues, and coordinating tasks between teams. These are precisely the kinds of activities that AI agents may eventually help automate. And this is where ServiceNow could play an important role. Because before an AI agent can take action, it must understand how work is supposed to move through the organization. ServiceNow already provides that operational framework. It knows who is involved, what processes need to happen, and what actions need to be taken next. In many ways, ServiceNow is positioning itself to become an orchestration layer for digital workers. Humans will continue making strategic decisions, while AI agents may increasingly handle routine operational tasks. That does not mean people will disappear from the workplace. It means people may be able to spend less time managing repetitive work and more time focusing on higher-value activities. If that transition happens over the coming years, ServiceNow could become even more deeply embedded inside large enterprises. Because the future of enterprise software may not be about helping people work faster. It may be about enabling work to happen autonomously, under human supervision. So far, we have built an investment thesis based on how ServiceNow operates as a business. But a strong story alone is never enough. The numbers must support the thesis. And over the past decade, ServiceNow has consistently demonstrated that ability. Revenue has expanded significantly as more enterprises adopted the platform. At the same time, subscription revenue has become the dominant contributor to the business, creating a more predictable stream of income. Profitability has also improved over time. Operating leverage has started to emerge as the company continues to scale. And strong free cash flow generation gives management additional flexibility to invest in future growth opportunities. These characteristics are often associated with high-quality software businesses. But what makes ServiceNow particularly interesting is that its financial performance reflects the same story we discussed earlier. As adoption expands, the business becomes stronger. And that strength increasingly appears in the numbers. Of course, no company can grow rapidly forever. The key question is whether ServiceNow can continue growing while maintaining its business quality. Because in the long run, durable businesses tend to be rewarded not only for growth, but for profitable growth. By now, the investment thesis should be clear. ServiceNow has built a platform that helps enterprises coordinate work more efficiently. But the next question is equally important. Can that growth continue? For many mature software companies, growth naturally slows over time as markets become saturated. But ServiceNow may still have multiple avenues for expansion. First, many existing customers continue to adopt additional products over time. What often begins as a focused deployment can gradually expand across multiple functions inside the organization. Second, enterprises are still in the early stages of modernizing how work gets done. Large organizations continue to face complexity, and that complexity is unlikely to disappear. Third, international markets may provide another source of long-term growth. As digital transformation efforts expand globally, more enterprises may seek platforms that can coordinate operations at scale. None of this guarantees that growth will remain elevated forever. Eventually, every successful company faces the law of large numbers. But ServiceNow may still have a significant runway ahead. Because its opportunity is not limited to selling software. Its opportunity is tied to helping organizations operate more efficiently. And as long as enterprises continue searching for ways to reduce complexity, ServiceNow may continue finding new opportunities to grow. Up to this point, the analysis has focused on the quality of ServiceNow as a business. The strength of its platform. The durability of its customer relationships. And the potential for long-term growth. But investing is not only about identifying great companies. It is also about the price you pay for them. A company can have exceptional fundamentals and still deliver weak investment returns if expectations are too high. Because when a business is widely recognized as high quality, the market often prices in a significant amount of future success in advance. That means even strong execution may not be enough to surprise investors positively. This is why valuation matters. Not because it tells us whether a company is good or bad, but because it tells us what is already being assumed. And in investing, the difference between reality and expectation is often where returns are created, or destroyed. Up to this point, we have focused on the quality of the business. How ServiceNow operates. Why customers stay. And how the platform continues to expand across the enterprise. But investing decisions are ultimately made at a different level. They are made at the intersection between business quality and price. In this valuation framework, we can see a range of possible outcomes. A more conservative scenario suggests limited upside if growth slows significantly, while a historical baseline reflects how the market has typically valued ServiceNow over time. And in a more optimistic case, continued execution and expansion could justify a higher valuation multiple. The key point is not to choose a single number as the correct price, but to understand the range of possibilities the market is currently pricing in. Because valuation is not about precision. It is about expectations. And different expectations lead to very different outcomes, even for the same underlying business. At the current level, the market is effectively balancing between strong business quality on one side, and high expectations on the other. Which is why the question is no longer just what ServiceNow is worth today, but what kind of business it will need to become in the future to justify that valuation. Every investment thesis deserves a stress test. And ServiceNow is no exception. Because even outstanding businesses are not immune to risk. The first risk is execution. Artificial intelligence may create significant opportunities, but turning that opportunity into sustainable business value is not guaranteed. Technology evolves quickly, and expectations can sometimes move faster than reality. The second risk is enterprise spending. ServiceNow primarily serves large organizations, and those customers tend to be sensitive to economic conditions. If businesses become more cautious with their technology budgets, expansion projects could slow down. And slower expansion may eventually affect growth. The third risk is valuation. High-quality companies often attract high expectations from investors. But high expectations can become a double-edged sword. Because even strong execution may not be enough if the market expects perfection. None of these risks necessarily invalidate the investment thesis. But they do remind us of something important. Great businesses are not risk-free businesses. Long-term investing is rarely about finding companies with no risks. It is about understanding whether the opportunities outweigh the risks over time. And ultimately, that is the question every investor must answer for themselves. Perhaps the most interesting question is not whether ServiceNow is an important company today. It is whether it can remain important as technology continues to evolve. History suggests that many successful American companies rarely remain static during major technological shifts. The strongest businesses often adapt, integrate new technologies, and expand their role over time. And that may be what ServiceNow is attempting to do in the age of artificial intelligence. Over the course of this analysis, we have seen how the company evolved from an IT service management tool into an operational platform used across large enterprises. We have also seen how AI may strengthen, rather than disrupt, that foundation. Of course, none of this guarantees future success. Technology changes quickly. Competition never disappears. And every investment thesis should remain open to new information. But one trend appears unlikely to reverse. Organizations are becoming more complex, not less. And as complexity continues to grow, the need to coordinate work efficiently may become even more important. The future of enterprise software may not be about building more applications. It may be about helping all those applications work together intelligently. If that future unfolds, ServiceNow could become one of the companies quietly operating behind the scenes of modern business for many years to come. And perhaps that is the most important idea to take away from this analysis. The companies that shape the future are not always the most visible ones. Sometimes, they are the ones that make everything else work. As always, this video is not financial advice. Please do your own research before making any investment decisions. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.